Vaughn, since I've been on the air, it's been 11 minutes and 7 seconds. I've been hearing that there's something dramatic happening in the courtroom. Because I was wrapped by your report and Andrew's analysis, I don't know what it is. Bring us inside what's unfolding.
The courtroom was momentarily just cleared here of the gathered press as well as the jury because Judge Merchan wanted to admonish Robert Costello, the current witness brought forward by the defense team for Donald Trump. He has been limited to a very narrow scope of testimony that he has been allowed to provide, and there's been several instances where he has begun to answer a question, and then ultimately there was an objection raised by the prosecution, which was sustained by Judge Merchan. But from our team inside, they're saying that Costello at one point let out a geez, and then another time let out a sigh. And another point ordered something to be struck from the record. And this led, ultimately, Judge Merchan to order everybody out of the courtroom. And right before, as this was happening, there were some quick words that Judge Merchan directed at Costello, telling him to not roll your eyes at me. He had suggested that he was, quote, staring him down. So it sounds like Robert Costello, who was that individual who was briefly counseling Michael Cohen for a couple months in 2018 and is testifying here that Cohen had told him that he did this all independently of Donald Trump, and he never informed Donald Trump of the Stormy Daniels payment. This is now sort of a key witness here for the defense team. But with the jury in the room, clearly Judge Merchan very peeved to the point that he asked the jury and the press to leave, and they are now just only being let back in.
Okay, so I have some of this transcript that Vaughn is just reading out to our audience. Merchan says, quote, I'd like to discuss, these are from our correspondent, our program's correspondent, Lisa Ferry, in the courtroom. I'd like to discuss proper decorum in my courtroom, Merchan says. If you don't like my ruling, you don't say geez. You don't say strike it because I'm the only one who can strike it from the record. Judge Merchan, you don't give me side eye and you don't roll your eyes. Costello, I understand. Merchan, clear the courtroom. This seems like, it seems very theatrical. This seems very Trumpian. What sort of damage can it do in the eyes of the jury?
Can I just say, I have been in a situation where I have had to and gotten court permission to have a lawyer for somebody testify. Those lawyers are dispassionate and careful, and they are only going to answer questions that they legally have to answer because they have a continuing duty of loyalty to their client or sometimes former client. Mm-hmm. And you know, and I would know in that situation that they were being completely ethical and trying to adhere to their continuing duties to their client. This is the antithesis of that from what we're seeing.
And just remind everybody who Costello is.
So Costello is somebody who Michael Cohen spoke to and had an attorney-client privileged relationship, but ultimately didn't hire. He has worked with Rudy Giuliani, and there has been evidence introduced, and this also came up in the Mueller investigation, suggesting that he and others were part of an effort to try to get Michael Cohen not to cooperate. It'll be interesting to see how much that plays out on cross. His behavior in the courtroom, let's just say it is not consonant with what I have seen with somebody thinking about their obligations to that client or prospective client, and isn't coming off as dispassionate.
Yeah. I mean, Suzanne Craig, you've watched all of this. I've read it all, which is a distant second to seeing it. I've not read Merchan this upset in every day of the trial transcript that I've read.
No, and I think what's really important about it is how much the jury reads him. You always see in these trials I've sat through, this is my third one, and the jury and the judge have a real relationship. And I think this is it's a big error on Trump's team's part to have this sort of exchange happening in the courtroom. They really pick up on what the judge is thinking, and I think it works against whoever's doing this, which happens to be Trump in this instance.
It's so ironic that everybody was saying, oh, Michael's going to, be glib or bust or unravel. Exactly. 25 hours on the stand, nothing. This guy's on the stand for a half hour. So that tells you something. And Andrew, obviously, you know this infinitely better than any of us. That has to play on a jury. You know, when you see a judge behaving that way, it destroys the credibility of that witness. I mean, it's just, he might as well say, don't believe this guy.
And they've got some smart jurors on there, including, I mean, not the, but 2 lawyers, too, who, you know, have seen this sort of thing before. They've been in courtrooms, I'm sure. You know, they're going to be reading this.
I mean, judges like jurors. I mean, and jurors like judges.
Right.
I mean, judges
They
are
need each
protective
other.
of-
That's the
They're like,
symbiosis.
and they're advocates.
Disrespecting a judge as a witness, it's just not a good thing, and especially because it's going to feed the reason it's not helpful to Trump's team right now is that's going to feed into the cross about alliance.
Again, I speak as I have no expertise except getting picked twice. You're sitting there as a juror, and I know there are technical aspects to bank fraud, and there are 19 checks, but you're trying to figure out if this guy is as mobbed up as the people that have gone to jail for him, his banker and the star witness, and when some guy comes up talking in a way that makes Judge Merchan clear the courthouse to talk about decorum.
And to Donnie's point about Michael Cohen, after Michael Cohen has kept his cool through 4 days,
It adds a credibility to
really
Michael
good
because
point.
you go,
Correct.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And what's interesting, you put this together with Trump closing his eyes, and if I'm a juror, I kind of go, this side doesn't take it seriously. This side thinks they're above it. This side thinks they don't have to be here. Nobody wants, and kind of works on you a bit. I mean, these are human beings, and I, as I said, have never been a trial attorney, but having sat through thousands of focus groups in my life, people are people, and they react a certain way.
Exactly. I don't know if this applies in a courtroom, but in politics, there's a curve, right? I mean, Cohen is there as the co-criminal. He's not. I mean, the Pope was busy. The Pope couldn't testify in Donald Trump's criminal trial. He was on CBS last night. I mean, you lots of. And again, I only know what I know from mob movies and David Kelly and you. But it seems that there has to be at least one example in time where someone who had lied before and maybe even gone to jail was viewed as credible by a jury.
Well, I've told this story about when I have put Sammy Gravana, the underboss of the Gambino family, on the stand, and he cooperated, and he obviously had a lot more baggage than Michael Cohen. I mean,
Only 19 murders. That was it, right?
Well, there's that little thing. But one of the things that was part of his baggage was as he was on tape counseling members of the Gambino family about what happens if you get called into the grand jury. And he had various percentages. He says, you know, I can't remember the exact amount, but it was like 65% of the time you can actually just tell the truth. And then he says, but you know, another 25% or so, he says, you sort of bob and weave. Like you sort of like, what do you mean? And ask and try to avoid the question. And then he said, the rest, just lie. And I remember Summation just saying, the only thing that is surprising about that tape recording is that it doesn't say 100% of the time lie.
Exactly. I mean, and listen, I actually, I mean, Vaughn, I want to give you the last word. I want to ask you a two-part question. One, bring me up to speed if this is still ongoing. But two, it is possible that the jury found Michael Cohen engaging and rather tolerant. I mean, the most generous descriptions in conservative media of Todd Blanche's time was uneven. Todd Blanche apologized to the jury for, quote, jumping around a lot. So again, in right-wing media, in Todd Blanche's own words, it veered between uneven and jumping around a lot. We have no idea. The jury may have found Michael Cohen a guy who has paid a price and feels some remorse. I mean, they may have found him alarmingly credible. We have no idea. We know nothing. You might know something. Vaughn.
Right. And the question was there going to be another potential witness that comes forward that wasn't somebody like Robert Costello, who is a friend of Rudy Giuliani, who Michael Cohen, I mean, we're talking about the witness on the stand right now is the same witness who Michael Cohen has already told the jury acted in a covert, I spy-ish type of a way when he was sending him emails, again, emails that have already been entered into as evidence, in which he said, you know, I'm going to be talking with my friend, Rudy Giuliani, who is meeting for dinner with his client, Donald Trump. Let me know if there's anything that I should be conveying to them and passing along. That came just mere weeks before he flipped. And so I think for this jury here, they have heard from somebody who doubled down here today. Susan Hoffinger said, do you have any doubt that you had a conversation with Trump to work it out? Cohen, no doubt. Do you have any doubt in your mind that Mr. Trump gave you the final sign-off? Cohen, no doubt. Again, so if Robert Costello is the defense's one key witness that they bring forward, you know, if you're the jury, you can call into question the extent to which you would put Robert Costello's story up against Michael Cohen. And of course, the main man, the defendant himself, who will sit there and would have the opportunity to go and defend himself and testify. And right now, there is no indication that he's going to do that on his own behalf.